The automatic doors of St. Margaret's Medical Center whooshed open as I pushed my father-in-law's wheelchair toward the surgical wing. That's when I heard it, a voice that could shatter wine glasses at 50 paces, screaming, "Excuse me, doctor. Can we push my father's triple bypass to after brunch?" I turned to see Cheryl Peton, my sister-in-law, slamming her bedazzled phone case onto the nurse's station counter so hard that 3 clipboards jumped. Her perfectly manicured finger jabbed at the surgery schedule like she was picking appetizers off a tapas menu, not rearranging life-saving heart surgery. Meanwhile, I stood there, slack-jawed, holding Mr. Peton's overnight bag while monitors beeped urgently in the background and nurses exchanged looks of pure disbelief. Let me back up and introduce myself properly. I'm Nathan Caldwell, 37 years old, and I work as a diesel mechanic at Riverside Auto Works here in Millbrook, Ohio. I'm the kind of guy who shows up on time, pays his bills, and believes that when medical professionals tell you someone needs emergency surgery, you shut up and let them do their job. I married into the Peton family 5 years ago. While my wife, Sarah, is wonderful, her sister Cheryl is what happens when participation trophies grow up and demand to speak to life's manager. Cheryl Peton, 42 years old and proud owner of 3 failed Etsy shops, strutted through that hospital like she was walking a runway in Milan instead of visiting her father before major heart surgery. She wore a velour tracksuit that probably cost more than my monthly truck payment, with sunglasses so large they could double as satellite dishes perched on her head. Even as her father lay prepped for open-heart surgery, she was barking into her phone speaker about the importance of self-care and living your truth. Her main concern wasn't the triple bypass that could save her father's life, but missing her weekly pancakes and pitchers event at the Golden Griddle, where $12 got you all-you-can-drink mimosas and, apparently, a license to abandon all sense of human decency. Dr. Harrison, the cardiac surgeon who'd been called in specifically for this emergency procedure, maintained his composure with the patience of a saint. He explained in measured tones that Mr. Peton's arteries were 90% blocked and that delaying the operation even a few hours could be fatal. The surgery was scheduled for 8:30 a.m., and the entire surgical team was already scrubbing in. Cheryl gasped like someone had just accused her of buying generic brand yoga pants. She clutched her chest dramatically and said, "Wow, fatal for who exactly? Because it feels pretty fatal for me if I miss my one morning of joy this week." She actually pulled out her rose gold iPad and started moving digital sticky notes around on what she called her life optimization calendar. She insisted that her father loved brunch, too, and that if he were conscious, he would absolutely tell her to go enjoy her pancakes. She said, and I quote, "This surgery is really more for you guys than for him. He's been tired lately anyway." I almost choked on my own saliva. The charge nurse, a woman named Gloria, who looked like she'd been dealing with difficult families since the Carter administration, gripped her clipboard so tightly I thought it might snap in half. When the medical staff firmly but politely refused to reschedule a life-saving surgery for unlimited mimosas, Cheryl escalated faster than a rocket launch. She whipped out her phone and started live streaming right there in the ICU. She held the camera up to her face and spoke in that fake concerned voice people use when they want sympathy on social media. "To all my followers, look at this oppression," she announced to her phone. "They're denying me the basic human right to brunch with my girlfriends. I guess hospitals only care about their own schedules, not about the mental health of patients' families." She actually panned the camera around the ICU, showing other patients hooked up to machines, nurses trying to work, and her own unconscious father lying on a gurney. She narrated the whole thing like she was exposing some great conspiracy, calling out St. Margaret's Medical Center by name, showing Dr. Harrison's face without permission, and even zooming in on her father's medical chart. She threatened to call the Better Business Bureau on the hospital, the Better Business Bureau, on a hospital, for having the audacity to save her father's life at an inconvenient time. That's when I'd finally had enough of this circus. I stepped forward and spoke loud enough for everyone in the waiting area to hear. I pointed out that her entire live stream, where she was naming the hospital, showing the surgeon without consent, and broadcasting her incapacitated father's medical information to strangers on the internet, was a direct violation of HIPAA privacy laws. I mentioned that she could face serious legal consequences, including lawsuits and being permanently banned from the hospital premises. Gloria, the charge nurse, perked up immediately and confirmed that yes, if that video got posted, security would have to escort Cheryl out immediately, and she would not be allowed back during her father's recovery. Cheryl's eyes went wide with genuine fear for the first time since she'd arrived. 2 security guards appeared as if summoned by the universe's sense of justice. They looked like former linebackers who'd found second careers in not tolerating nonsense. The head of security, a mountain of a man named Jerome, informed her in no uncertain terms that she had 2 choices. She could delete the live stream immediately and wait quietly in the family lounge like a reasonable adult, or she could keep the video up and be permanently banned from visiting her father, with potential legal action to follow. When she tried to argue that she had rights and that her followers needed to know the truth, I couldn't help myself. I announced loudly enough for the entire floor to hear, "Hey, Cheryl, don't worry about missing brunch. I'll make sure your dad pulls through his surgery just fine, and you can still make it to brunch at Waffle House by yourself at 3 p.m. when they stop serving breakfast." The waiting room erupted in nervous laughter as several family members of other patients, who had been watching the spectacle unfold, reacted. One elderly woman actually slow-clapped. Cheryl's face turned the color of an overripe tomato as she frantically deleted her viral video while muttering about her ruined social media aesthetic and how this would affect her engagement metrics. She complained that she'd already told her brunch group she might be late, and now she'd look like a liar. She actually said, while her father was being wheeled into surgery, that this whole situation was making her look bad to her influencer friends. Jerome, the security guard, escorted her to the family lounge, where she spent the next 4 hours sending passive-aggressive texts to our family group chat about how unsupported she felt. The surgery was a complete success. Dr. Harrison and his team performed the triple bypass flawlessly, and Mr. Peton was moved to recovery by noon. When he finally woke up around 3 p.m., groggy but stable, I was there with Sarah. I couldn't help but tell him everything that had happened with Cheryl. The old man, still hooked up to oxygen, shook his head slowly and croaked out in a raspy voice that his daughter would probably try to reschedule his funeral if it conflicted with her wine-tasting club. We all knew he was right. The real kicker came a week later. Cheryl did go to the Golden Griddle for her precious Pancakes and Pictures event the following Saturday. According to Sarah, who heard it from their cousin, Cheryl spent the entire brunch telling her friends how she had personally negotiated her father's survival around her schedule and how the hospital had tried to discriminate against her for being a strong, independent woman who knew her priorities. She claimed she'd stood up to the medical establishment and won. 3 weeks after the surgery, the hospital's legal department sent Cheryl a formal cease and desist letter regarding her social media posts about the incident. She'd apparently made several TikToks recreating the events with creative liberties that bordered on defamation. She'd hired her friend's daughter to play a nurse and filmed reenactments in her living room, where she portrayed herself as a hero fighting against medical tyranny. In one video, she claimed the hospital had tried to perform unnecessary surgery on her father for profit. In another, she suggested that Dr. Harrison had been drinking before the procedure, which was completely fabricated. The letter informed her that any further posts mentioning St. Margaret's Medical Center, Dr. Harrison, or any staff members would result in legal action. The letter also included a bill for $875 for a privacy violation fine related to filming in the ICU without permission. But that wasn't all. Because she'd shown other patients in her live stream, 2 families had filed formal complaints, and she was facing an additional fine of $2,300 for multiple HIPAA violations. The hospital's attorney made it clear that if she didn't pay within 30 days, they would pursue collections, and she could face a misdemeanor charge for violating state health information privacy laws. The final paragraph stated that Dr. Harrison was considering a separate defamation lawsuit for her false claims about him being intoxicated, which could result in damages exceeding $50,000. Cheryl called Sarah, crying about how she might have to sell her new Range Rover to pay for lawyers.